Ready to go. So, today we're going to talk about a very important topic. I know this is something that's on my mind. We all know that prevention is always better than cure. And there seems today to be no better prevention than having a strong immune system. Constant hand washing, social distancing, and of course, wearing double masks. Today, though, we're going to speak about how we can strengthen our immune system. I have with me today Dr. Gurmeet Singh, who's a good family friend also. He is the professor and center head for the Ayurveda, Biology, and Holistic Nutrition. Gurmeet, my God, his background is amazing. He's a scientist, he's an inventor, he's an innovator with more than 25 years of experience of having worked in academia and in the food industry in research and development. He has a strong interest in working on food first solutions for health and wellness problems relevant to society and environmental sustainability. He has founded also a tea and botanicals infusion company. He has got over 25 patents, 20 publications, and one book edited. And if that was not enough, I mean, his background, he's got a BTech in chemical engineering from the prestigious IIT Delhi and a PhD in chemical engineering from the Penn State University in US. So Gurmeet, welcome to Sipping Thoughts. We're excited to have you here.
Yeah, thank you, Prakriti. Thanks. Very happy to be back here.
Well, thank you. I mean, I'm going to kick it off because, like every day, today again, I got another WhatsApp message giving me how many solutions of how I could boost my immunity. I almost get so many per day that it's really confusing. How much faith do you put in them? And where can we actually find reliable information?
I guess a number of questions. Firstly, around food and immunity, and how do we boost our immunity? I think immunity is a subject which is being studied extensively in science. It's something which is where we are studying a lot, but we have little answers in terms of boosting of our immunity. Boosting immunity is a very tricky subject, right? What we know is what are the various elements of the body, various organs of the body which are involved in immunity. And so immunity is a system. Immune function is a system. Right? There are so many different organs and cells which are involved. And the key to having good immunity is that all these organs, functions, cells, tissues, they are working in balance and harmony with each other, right? And so when we talk about immunity, we talk about, I think, a few things like balanced diet, for example, good sleep, for example, exercise. Yeah, I mean, for me, five big things about when we talk about immunity, and boosting immunity is something I don't really agree with, but I like to say that how do we support our immune system, right? And so there are five big things. Food plays a big role, sleep plays a big role, exercise plays a big role, and then two softer ones. One is stress, and the other is friends. Yeah. So I think these are five key things that we should focus on to support our immune system, right? And not really look for a quick fix in terms of immune boosting. What could I take? What is the one thing that I could do? But think of what could you do to improve these five things, right? Food, sleep, exercise, stress, and friends. Yeah, and if you tick these boxes, it's good.
But you are specifically doing a lot of research on food.
Yes.
And that is your area of interest. And this is what we keep getting all the WhatsApp messages of drink this, drink hot water, nibu pio, ye wala khao, tulsi khao. I mean, I don't know, umpteen messages.
Hmm.
So, I mean, if you're saying that, listen, it has to be a balanced approach, where are all of these messages coming from? There must be some shred of truth to them, people believe.
Yeah, so I think what science knows, right? I mean, so I'm a scientist, and as a scientist, you require a proof in a certain way to be able to say that this is a scientifically proven advice. I think that is where the science is still working on, and it hasn't reached a point where we can conclusively say that doing this will boost your immunity by this percent, right? We know that individual pieces that, hey, uh, I require, my skin is my first barrier. When I talk about immune health, my gut lining is my first barrier, because if you're talking especially immunity in terms of microbes, then it needs to penetrate into my body. So it's either through my external skin or through my internal skin, which is my gut lining. So how do I strengthen those, right? How do I prevent things from leaking in? And therefore, skin health and gut health become extremely important parts of immunity, which is where you keep hearing about things like probiotics and prebiotics, for example, right? I mean, probiotics, especially because you want to feed the stuff which lives on your gut, because that can improve your gut lining, prevent a leaky gut, as they call it. So there's so many facets to it, and the science is still trying to stitch all these pieces together into saying how good an immune system is. I'll just give you an analogy, right? You could say a country is strong defensively if it has
Sorry, we lost you. Hello?
Yeah, hi. Sorry, I
Sorry,
lost.
we lost your connection. Yes, go ahead.
So
You were telling us about the country.
I'll just give an analogy, right? A country has to protect itself from invaders, right? Just like our body has to protect itself from invaders. So it has to protect itself from invaders. And so what does it do? It has a army, it has a navy, it has an air force, and it has so many other. It has an intelligence system, etc. It has a medical system. So many different aspects to that. You make any one of those weak and your country will be weak, right? There is a hole in the immunity of the country. So unless each of them are strong and they are well coordinated with each other, you don't have a good immune system, right? Saying that, hey, I have a very strong air force, but I have a negligible army, doesn't make you strong, right? So similarly, we have so many different organs and cells involved in immunity. Trying to say that, hey, I have one organ system which is now functioning very well, doesn't make my immunity good. So what is the network? What's the coordination? What's the harmony between? Are they able to pass the baton on from one system, one organ to the other? Is what makes an immune system strong, and that requires a lot of research. So while we have one-on-one research that, hey, if I do this, my skin health will be better. If I do this, my gut health will be better. If I do this, my adaptive immunity will be better, or my innate immunity will be better. But each one on their own may actually create, I mean, strengthening one may actually create a problem, right? As opposed to solve, which is what we see in, say, for example, COVID, where a lot of the problem comes from a very strong immune reaction, right? Our body goes into a hyperimmune reaction, right? As opposed to, so that's why this boosting immunity can be very tricky, because we do not know the connections, the interconnections, the coordination, the harmony which is required. What we require is a balanced approach to life. And yes, food, as I said, plays a key part in it, along with exercise, along with sleep, along with stress management, along with our social network that we have. Uh, and what are the goods and bads? Well, there are healthy diet is all about balance. So we have balanced micronutrients, we have balanced macronutrients, and we have phytonutrients. That's the emerging block of molecules in food that we are just beginning to understand. Things like polyphenols, things like lignans, alkaloids, etc. And if you're talking about a balanced diet from a Ayurveda perspective, we have the six rasas, right? That we call about the madhur, the amla, the lavan, the which is the sweet, the salt, the sour, and then the remaining three, which are the bitter, the astringent, and the pungent, right? So we need to have these six elements, the six elements of tastes, of foods with these tastes in our daily diet, right? And uh, and yes, there are gaps. I mean, if I talk from the modern science perspective, our diets may lack certain micronutrients. I mean, especially if we talk about immunity, the strongest pieces of evidence are in vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin B6, vitamin B12, zinc is there, selenium is there, iron is always there, right? So these are some strong micronutrients linkages which are there, with respect to various parts of the immune function, the immune organs. And when we talk about Ayurveda, I feel our diet, modern diet, is beginning to miss out on a couple of taste blocks, right? One particular one is the bitter block, as I call it. So bitter foods, we should try and incorporate in our diet wherever possible, right? I mean,
Give us some examples of some bitter foods.
bitter fruits, Karela is one everybody has. But if I look at my grandfather, I used to, as a kid, as a 2, 3 year old kid, I would go with my grandfather early morning walks. We had a huge giant neem tree about 100 feet from our house. And the first thing my grandfather would do, go to that neem tree, stand under it, pluck a few leaves and chew them, right? Neem se kaudi kya cheez hoti hai. So we've kind of lost out on the bitters. And now the more I read about bitters, both in Ayurveda and as well as in modern science, I realized that that's going to be one superfood block which will emerge over the next couple of decades, I feel. I mean, if I look at food research. And it links up with so many things from hormonal balance to gut regeneration to enzymes, secretion, etc. So that's something to include in our diet, not just go for the nicer tasting ones, the sweet, the sour, the salty. We like all those things. But the bitters are good. Even things like Nimbu has bitter stuff in there, right? You do sense. So whenever you have a fruit which has a little bit of a bitterness in it, don't throw it away. Don't go just for the tastier, sweeter varieties. I mean, bitter is good. Develop a taste for bitter. It's an acquired taste, I think. And balance it out. I mean, the trick about bitters, the bitters can be bad as well, right? And so we need to balance out bitters, which is खाली एक ही चीज हर रोज, ये नहीं कि करेला ही खा रहे हैं हर रोज या नीम का पत्ता ही चबा रहे हैं हर रोज. Balance it out with 7, 8, 10 bitters. On food, the other, so before I go to that, the next thought that I have in mind with respect to this, but the other big part, the other two part, the astringent foods and the pungent food. So what do I mean about them? Astringent है जिसमें मुंह में थोड़ा सा पकड़ सा हो जाता है, पकड़िंग हो रहा है, ड्राइनेस का सेंसेशन आता है, जैसे कि जामुन खा के आ जाता है, जैसे नींबू पी के आ जाता है. One of the best daily sources of astringent foods is chai, right? I mean, tea is very rich in astringent molecules. It also has enough bitter molecules in there. So that's a good thing to have on a daily basis. The pungent ones, largely are, the way to understand pungency in the Ayurveda perspective is probably essential oils, right, in foods. So we should have a good amount of essential oils in our food. And what are the sources of essential oils? Spices, right? There was in fact a very interesting study which I had come across, which related COVID incidences around the world. 160 countries they studied, along with their spice consumption. And they found out that countries which consume spices, the more they consume spices, the lesser the incidence of COVID. Now, that is all before wave 2.
I was going to say this. I was going to say, is it before? I mean, because the data could be very warped in this case.
Correct, right. And also, when I look at the actual case data, it is so iffy. You do not know what the real number of cases are versus, so should not go by them. But in general, essential oils are good. Spices are a good source of essential oil. And the point I was getting to is the way we consume our spices today are not fresh as such, right? Hamara agar masale le raha hu ground and right, they've been there for 6 months. Essential oils go very quickly. So that's another food block from an Ayurveda perspective that I focus on, is how can we consume more fresher things in terms of the essential oils, fresher spices, etc. So boost those two things, right, is important. The other thing with respect to diet, I have my 5 principles, and you mentioned about IOG, infusions of goodness, or I also call it ideas of goodness when we talk about food. And there are 5 principles I look at. One is the principle of moderation. We shouldn't have anything in excess, right? Even calories in excess nahi khana chahiye. It stresses the body too much. Second is the principle of diversity. We keep hearing ki proteins lijiye, carbohydrates lijiye, iron lijiye, etc. Foods rich in iron. Uh, there is enough proof today that having one thing which is say rich in vitamin C versus five different things with vitamin C rich, the five different sources will give you same amount of vitamin. Let's say 100 units I'm getting only from oranges versus 100 units में एक दिन आमला खाया, एक दिन ऑरेंज खाया, एक दिन एप्पल खाया, एक दिन कुछ और खाया. So the five different sources, the diversity in our diet is way better than just taking one thing. And that is one thing if we do not take care of, we start losing out, right, in terms of diversity. That's the nature of urban life, right? Urban life creates a distance from where things are grown, right? And it reduces diversity. So diversity is the second principle. So moderation, diversity. Third is selection. What suits us, right? There is an element of personalization. There is a population level advice on food, and there is a personalized advice on food, right? While population advice may say, you have 2000 calories, have 20 milligrams of iron. But my body also requires a specific personalized diet, right? I may not all sources of iron, foods with rich in iron may suit me. So there's a selection criteria that we need to look at. So be mindful of what I'm eating, how my body is responding, and be selective in that sense. There is also a framework in Ayurveda called the Prakriti Dosha framework, which helps us, can guide us as to, hey, if this is my body type, then I should be having more of these and having less of these foods. So that's another way to look at food. So that becomes the third principle, the principle of selection. So moderation, diversity, and selection. The fourth I call the principle of preference, right? क्योंकि हम सबका स्वाद भी एक होता है. We prefer things, right? And so we have to be mindful of our preferences. Just imposing something कि ये अच्छा है can work for a little time, but unless the body likes it, my sense organs like it, I will not stick to it. So I include this preference, logic in there, and being able to cook things in a tasteful way. So how can I cook bitters in a tasteful way, right? Is a art that we do. And the fifth is of supplements, which is that in spite of everything, there are some things that we all struggle with in our diet, right? And if I look up the nutritional profile of foods that I eat versus what is the recommended amount of micronutrients, the vitamins and the minerals that I should have, I do find that things like zinc and B12, etc., no matter what I do in my diet, I may struggle with getting the adequate portions just in my mouth, leave alone the absorption part from my body, right? What opportunity do we have? If I believe in modern science, I will start looking at a little bit of supplementation. The science again on supplements is very iffy because it says that while things may be effective when eaten as food, but as a capsule, its effectiveness, even something like vitamin C, the effectiveness as a tablet is not as vitamin C in a fruit, right? So, but having nothing, if you are, I am short on vitamin D historically and vitamin B12, and so I do take those supplements, right?
I think that's a good question that you answered, because a lot of us do struggle with that question. And especially now, should we be taking a daily multivitamin? Just
Yeah.
something that kind of covers all the bases, or should it be very specific to what you're missing in your diet?
Yeah, so I think the strong belief from any nutritionist would be uh, that you should get your vitamin levels tested, number one, right? Second, that you should try and maximize, if you are deficient in something, try and find foods which will fill up that gap, right? Your first should always be food first solutions, right? I mean, those are the most effective. And diversity. So now don't find just one food with something and say, yaar, maine to methi abhi main har roz khaunga, right? Find 10 so that you are rotating them very regularly. And then if there is a gap, you go to that specific vitamin. I'm not in favor of boosting everything, because overdose of vitamins and minerals is also very harmful, right? So we should not overdose. We should. So for people, it's a I'm a food techie, right? Which is that I while I am also very fond of whole foods and natural foods. I have a garden and I like to grow things and put them on my plate. But I'm also a food techie and health techie. So I wear all kinds of wearables and things. So even today, if I just show you, I mean, this is a very common thing. I don't know if you can see this little dot that I have here on my arm. This is a patch which is very popular these days, right? It's a size of a coin. I stick it, it stays there for 14 days. I can take a bath, do whatever I want to, and it measures my glucose every 15 minutes. And so whatever I eat, I download it onto my computer and I can get a nice glucose profile. I call it glucose excursion, right? Or glycemic excursion, right? And today I'm also doing a lipemic excursion, my lipid profile excursion. So whatever I'm eating, what does excursion mean? Each of us has a baseline of sugar, just like where is the likelihood of finding me? The likelihood of finding me is maximum at my home in this room, right? But I go on excursions, right? And sometimes I go on little excursions up to my garden, and other times I go on bigger excursions up to Dharamshala or Nainital or somewhere, right? So similarly, our glucose level, our lipid profile in our blood is around our baseline, but it goes on excursions because the moment I put something in my mouth, I eat, my blood glucose levels will start going on an excursion. And how big those excursions are, how high they go and how low they go after my body responds to bring them back, tells me something about my health. So I'm a techie in that sense that I eat things and I try and
You
figure out
can
what.
measure everything, but let's come back to the common person. The
Yes.
common person wants, like, Gurmeet, tell me that one thing I need to do. I mean, I look at it and say, okay, people are so overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And they say, okay, please tell me those one or two things that are absolutely essential.
So again, I think the way to look about a healthy body and immune function is not about looking at one thing. There are no quick fixes that science has come up with. I don't think it will ever, unless our body is reduced to one cell. Right? We are a multi-organ. So there is no quick fix, but there are guidelines. I mentioned about the 5 big bullets to think of. Right? The food, the sleep, the exercise. One of the biggest things which came out of, I mean, the recent study which came out on COVID was that people who exercise, and when it says exercise, it's like walking. It's not about going to the gym and regularly exercising. And no, it's about going on regular walks, 15, 20 minutes of टहलने जाते हैं ना शाम को जैसे कि people who do that are much less susceptible to COVID than who don't, right? That was one, and a really good journal, right? And some 40,000 people looked at, studied with their behaviors, etc., to look at. So it's a big study, it's a powerful study, and that's something to advise people to go for walks, right? Wear a mask, be out there in the open, wear a t-shirt, a sleeveless t-shirt, shorts, get vitamin D, get sunlight if possible, right? India, though we live in a very sunny country, we are deprived of sunlight. It sounds strange, but we are. And so go out. So there is no one thing that can be done, is the one message I would like to give everyone.
Now, I want to ask you this question because we now come back to skin. Now, skin is one of the things where they're saying, of course, when I say skin, that, okay, that the COVID virus or whatever comes through our nose, our eyes, touching. So, and people are saying, okay, please inhale or only drink hot foods. What about all of this?
Uh, So no, again, no real evidence behind it. You mentioned earlier on, I didn't answer that question. The first opening remark was, what are the good sources to go through, right? Because there's so many messages which come on WhatsApp. Number one, don't read any WhatsApp message which is trying to send any science through it. I think that's one thing, is good habit if you can create, that don't take your advice from WhatsApp, because it's so filled up with noise. You need to go to specific sources. The couple of sources that I go to come up with what are the latest, because they keep updating also quite well. One is Harvard Health. Harvard Health, Mayo Clinic, etc. These slides keep updating their information very regularly with the latest science in a very easy to read manner. So Harvard Health is targeted towards the common man, right? Not the scientist. So it's a good place to go to catch up on something. Similarly, WHO side, right? WHO is what is possible around the world, practical information which comes up. So these are two good places to go to, and stick with those. Yeah, you don't need a third place, I would say, to go to. Yeah.
Now, Gurmeet, we're going to do some quick myths and truths, okay?
Yes. Yeah.
All right, so this is what we are hearing. We're hearing that hot water and steaming is the solution. Is that true?
I think there is no harm in hot water and steaming. It's always good, COVID or no COVID. And so therefore, if you have the time and the inclination, do it. It's a good habit to inculcate, but don't think that doing this will get rid of COVID for me or will prevent me from falling ill from COVID. For their social distancing, masks and vaccines, of course, are the three top things for COVID. Yeah. But go ahead and do
The
steaming.
second one, having cold things is problematic. You should not be drinking cold drinks, having ice cream, cold water.
Uh, I do all of those things. I don't think they are problematic. As I said, moderation and everything is fine. If cold things do not suit you, avoid. If you enjoy them, do in moderation. No harm. Yeah. I'm guessing your questions are very specific to COVID, or are they general lifestyle? Yeah.
No, they're more specific right now to COVID because these are all coming from the COVID situation, that
Yeah.
people are telling us. They're saying that avoid foods that cannot be cooked.
Yeah. Of course, cooking kills everything, and if there's a virus, so it will get it's a chemical molecule, and chemical molecules do get broken down or break up by heating. So that's always a sound advice to take, to have as much of cooked food. In India anyways, it's a sound advice to have as much of cooked food versus raw food. But it doesn't mean we completely avoid. I mean, fruits is fine to have fruits, right? Uh, so I wouldn't go as a advice that only have cooked foods. I have a salad every day, right? So that's okay. Yeah.
And Ayurvedic treatments cure COVID. We
I
keep
think
hearing.
there is no treatment for COVID. Modern science, traditional knowledge systems, etc. Uh, there are things that you could do to, if you have COVID, rest. Yeah, give your body enough rest. Give your body light, easy to digest food, like dal chahiye to moong dal lijiye. Amla is a good one. So vitamin C is always good to have. I always say an amla a day. From an apple a day, I'm a strong supporter of an amla a day keeps the doctor away. Right? It is so rich in so many things. So those are some of the things.
Now, the new one, you're saying amla a day, they're saying have chawanprash a day. 1 spoon. Let's go back to that.
Yeah, so I will say Chawanprash is good. Besides amla, it has some 36 other ingredients. I've done a lot of processing research, at least on Chawanprash. Have a little pilot plant where we can make very good quality Chawanprash. So I've done a lot of work on Chawanprash. Yes, Chawanprash is a good source of amla. Just be mindful that Chawanprash also comes with a lot of sugar in it. It's basically a spoonful of sugar with 5% amla in it, right? So be careful of that part, right? For most of us, sugar is not a problem, right? Having that 1 spoon of sugar is not a problem. If you're having Chawanprash, have it, cut your sugar in some other place. Yeah?
A lot of people believe that the heat, because, if you're saying cooking will kill it, then standing in the sun will kill the virus. Is that true?
So I don't think it's about standing in the sun will kill the virus or anything. We should not go by those things, but standing in the sun for a short amount of time, 5, 10, 15 minutes of activity in the sun, walk in the sun is good. After lunch, go and sit out a little while, or go to a garden if you have, or go for a little walk if you have before you rest. It's always a good thing. But don't think of it in terms of killing the virus. Yeah.
And any last tips you'd like to leave our viewers with?
Yeah, so we said, don't think, I mean, my key message will be, don't think of a single point solution to your immune health. avoid people who are giving you single point advice as a cure all. I mean, listen to them, keep them as friends, but don't take health advice from them. Be very careful of people who give single point advices. Science has, no matter where you go, Eastern science, Western science, modern science, traditional science, nobody has understood it fully. We do understand parts of it. Be mindful. I mean, I think be mindful of it, whatever you do, enjoy whatever you do, and do a variety of things in your life. Yeah, is what I keep.
Well, thank you, Gurmeet, for sharing your valuable time with us. And always your advice comes right at the right time. And yes, what you said, this is not a quick fix solution. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Bye.